Hey everybody, this is Chris Petracchi, and today we're going to draw the eye. Well, not this eye exactly, but these eyes, the glorious organs that allow photons in and allow us to see the beauty of the world around us. Let's get in here and see what's up. Oh, okay, now we've got to be confronted with this beast. Let's see what he can reveal to us about drawing the eyes. Here we are. Let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the eye. You can see that the eye is literally a ball and is about 1 inch in diameter, and it fits inside of an eye socket or an orbit, to be technical about it. And that socket protects it from blows to the eye, from predators, enemies. The eyebrows protected from sweat, the eyelashes protected from dirt getting into the eye, onto the sclera, and irritating it or damaging it. The eye is like a fingerprint. It has 256 characteristics as opposed to the fingerprint, which has 40 unique characteristics. And so that's why it's used in security scans to identify people. It's a lot more accurate than the fingerprint. And the eye is composed of 2 million working parts. That's amazing. So the eye weighs just about 1 ounce, and it's about 1 inch across, as I mentioned. So if we look at this here, there is one eye in between each eye from tear duct to tear duct. Let's see, a tear duct would be about there. All right, so we have one eye in between. And then we have about one eye that'll get you out to the side of the head or even to the edge of the ear, approximately on average. So that's called, right there is called the 5-eye line. And that's a measurement that you can use once you're familiar with 5 eyes across. That's the same distance from the tip of the head to the bottom of the nose. And from the bottom of the nose, take that same measurement, you can get right down to the pit of the neck. So it's a very helpful measurement to know. So we've got basically bone protecting the eye. We do have muscles here, here, and here that control the movement of the eye inside the orbit. And it also controls the blinking of the eyelids and so on. We're not going to get into those that much, but we will get into some of this. This is called the lacrima bone right here. Okay. And there's the top of the zygomatic arch, the top of the zygoma, which is the bottom part of the orbit of the eye. The top part of the orbit of the eye is the foramen. And that is basically what's the technical name for it? Is the supraorbital notch or supraorbital foramen right in here. Okay, so right in there. And the suborbital foramen is down in here. And here we have something called the glabella or the superciliary arch, and that's in here. A very important one that we can talk about a little bit later, but I'll note it for now. Okay, so let's go to a 3/4 view right here. So now you can kind of see that how this glabella overlaps the supraorbital notch. or the eyebrow bone of the eye socket. So that eyebrow bone fits in to the glabella. And that glabella comes in right there. And so you can see there's the top part of the front plane of the nose, and then it steps down here and hits the lacrima, and then goes in to the interior part of the eyeball. And this comes out that way. So there is a kind of a, a plane right here, right? And then this can continue out this way, and there is the nasal labial fold. A lot of times you'll start to see that. So it's muscle, a little bit of fat that covers over the zygomatic arch, which is underneath, and covers over the muscles, many more or less, depending on the person. And so let's move into how we would draw something like this. Let's get a little deeper into describing the eyeball. Okay, let's look at the shape of the eyebrow itself, because we definitely need to know that it's really, you can look at this thing and you can draw it like, oops, let's call up another layer here. Okay, it's kind of like a square, okay, tilted a little bit, but it runs this way. It's at an angle. It's not horizontal like that, okay? It's at an angle, and it's got some straights and some curves, okay? You can also think of it as a pair of aviator sunglasses for the quick block in, the quick iconic eye, all right, that you can go ahead and kind of block in like that just to get it spaced and placed. All right, from there, you can draw the rhythm of the nose, okay, and continue on building the eye inside that. Okay, so those are the aviator sunglasses, or basically the straights and curves, but it's definitely at this angle that kind of slopes down. Okay. Okay, two other helpful quick ways to help you visualize the eye socket is a cup. So imagine this cup, and there's a sphere tucked nicely inside of it, right? If the light is coming from top down, then we have shadow here, right, and a shadow on that eyeball. Okay, so that's one way you can think about it. Another way to think about it is like a whistle, okay, or like some kind of cone, not cone, cylinder with a piece whittled out of it. Right, so it's just a nice cutout piece where you can see a front plane, then it steps down and goes in another direction, and then becomes a top plane again, and then a side plane. So front plane, under plane, top plane, then side plane. And there'd be just that little eyeball sitting in there protected. Okay, so that's, another way to think about the eye socket and eyeball relationship. Moving on, let's do an eye here. So the eye is literally a ball, okay? So if our light is coming from the top right and a little bit in front, okay, so we'll use this kind of arrow here to show light direction, okay, then we're going to see light being cast onto the ball, and then so it'll be lighter at the top right and it'll move slowly away to the left. Will get darker, and then we have the iris inside. So the iris is about half the diameter of the eyeball itself. So I'm going to just take a quick measurement like that. Okay, and then just going to move around a little bit, and then let us paint in here. I want to just build that up kind of slowly here. Okay, then I'm going to just blur a little bit here. Okay, so that right there is the iris. Okay, so the iris is an amazing thing when you look at it so close up. It is so cool. Let's do that right now. Look at that. That iris, that fuzzy, hairy looking stuff is the iris. And there are colors, right? So there's different colors. Look at that. That is just otherworldly. Doesn't that look like a sci-fi landscape or something like that? A weird black hole, right? So there's pigmentation in the iris. So eyes can be many different colors. And all that pigmentation and kind of hairy stuff prevents photons from passing through there and restricts the passage of light through the pupil, which is that black thing right in the middle. And on top of that, there is a cornea. Okay, so that is light is passing through that cornea. Some light is reflecting off of it, and some is scattering across the surface. Okay, so getting back to this, so we're looking at the iris right here, and now I'm going to go ahead and paint the pupil. So I'm going to grab my marquee tool, hit select, space button to move it around, center it. So the pupil is a black hole. It's actually a hole in the iris that allows photons to come in and to the back of the retina, hit the rods and cones, and reveal things to us in the world around us. The white stuff around the ball of the eye is called the sclera. That's this stuff here. That's the sclera. Okay. Get my shape dynamics going. Okay, sclera, right? Iris, right here. Pupil, here. Okay. So you can think of this eyeball as having like a kind of a dowel stuck in it and coming out the other side. That can help you kind of keep your orientation of the eyeball horizontally so that it doesn't start to, tilt this way or tilt that way and get a little bit weird. Okay, just think of it as a ball with a dowel going through it. On that surface, okay, of the cornea, which is the lens covering the iris, is the highlight. So you're going to see the highlights, the specular highlights right there. That's the light that's really reflecting right back at you at the most intense, in the most intense way. It's the thing that's facing the light. Okay. So what happens is some of that stuff reflects right back to us, and some of it passes right through the cornea, and it starts to illuminate this side of the iris. So we get a little bit of kind of reflected, not reflected, but it's refracted. So it's going through the cornea and refracting and lighting up this part of the iris. Okay, and the part right next to the highlight on the cornea is darker, right? This area here, it's darker right next to the highlight. So around the highlight, darker, and on the opposite side, it's a bit lighter, and you see kind of a gradation here from dark to medium gray. Okay, that is really important, and that is cool. Oh, Siri was talking to me. I was talking, and it has voice control. So I activated that. Anyway, so you're going to see different things as reflections in here. You can see I have a brush that actually is really cool that I created for retouching photography stuff. And you can put a brush right in here, and let me see here what's happening. Switch over to okay. Just like this, you can pop in. Looks like reflecting a flash of a bulb, maybe with a softbox, and down below that, it kind of looks like maybe a reflector right here that's underneath. So you get this dual kind of highlight with this one being brighter and this one being a little less bright. Okay, so that's beautiful for photography, portrait photography, and also for just painting your portraits. Not only that, you can have, you might see something like a window in there. It's a room, right, that you're you're in. So that eye is just reflecting back the surroundings, and that's what's pretty cool, right? So you might see something like that in there. You can see all kinds of stuff. You can see people, you can see buildings, you can see environments, and so on. And you might have, like I said, a couple different ones, because the eyeball is always wet. Okay, so it's always wet. Okay, very reflective, a very amazing organ. Okay, so we got the eyelid passing across the top here, and then coming down right into the tear duct. Okay, and then coming this way. And you probably won't see the bottom either. You never really see the whole iris unless it's someone's really frightened. The way you make someone frightened is you put that whole eyeball in there, and you see the more whites of the eyes. Okay, so that little bone right here, it looks like a bow and arrow. That's the top of the eyebrow. Okay, and then you'll see the top part of the bottom of the eyelid, and this kind of stuff. Right, so that's how that is. And you'll see that there's an angle here, right? So there's really a straight line, and you can get straight here and straight here. It's not an almond that's so equal on top and bottom like that. It's definitely not that. It's more like this kind of angle here. All right, so let's look at it from kind of a 3/4 view. So let's take this, move it over here, Command T. Let's kind of do it like that. Okay. So imagine there's that that kind of dowel going through it. So you'd see it maybe kind of passing through here, right there, and it'd be coming out the other side over on that far side. Okay, so imagine this dowel kind of passing through, and it's kind of helping you keep the thing oriented. All right, so that's somewhat what it would look like. So I would be thinking about that when I put my eyebrow on there and thinking, okay, well, I got to pull that eyebrow over the surface, right? I'm pulling it over, and it has a thickness, right? So I'm going to see the top part of that eyelid, right? Then I'm going to see the under part of the eyelid as it pulls around to the other side. Okay, and then this is going to connect in a tapered way. Top part of the eyelid, so you see top and underplane, and then that lower lid's going to come out from the upper lid, and then it's going to pull around. So that's also going to have a top plane. It's going to come around like that. I think I want to turn my transfer on. Okay, so that's going to have a thickness, so it's going to have a top plane here, side plane here, or front plane. Okay, then it's going to hit the bottom part of the eye socket and go on to the top part of the cheek. Okay, so this is going to be, get some shadow here. This is going to get some shadow there. And we'll have some, probably some shadow here as it turns away from the light if it's coming from the top right. We'll have some shadow here, right? And this is an underplane facing away from the light. Okay. And then we'll probably, have some eyebrow bone in there, right? So that's possibly at play, depending on the person. And then we've got a little bit of highlight there, okay? And this will kind of be underneath. And we'll also get a shadow on the sclera because that is a ball. Remember, it's a ball and it's turning away from the direction of the light. So we'll just get that dark and then kind of soften up the edge. Right? And then the top eyelid will be casting a shadow onto the eyeball as well. And so that comes into play, and that's real important. If you get that in there, it's real good. It gives that kind of depth to the eye, and it could be those deep set, moody eyes that you're looking into the soul of that person, trying to read their character or connect with them. Okay, and then you have your eyelashes, and I basically draw those in groups. I don't draw like singular lashes coming off all over the place. I don't do that. I'll just draw the shape and a thickness, and that's about it, okay, for that. And then if you're drawing lower lid lashes, they come in pairs, right? And so you can put little pairs on there like that. And that tends to work pretty good. Or you can also just thicken it up like it's kind of like eyeliner, and you can group them. I don't, like I said, I don't go off on that too much because it tends to look a little weird. But if I just thicken up the line, then it looks pretty good to me, good enough. You know, you might have a couple of stray ones there, but otherwise that's pretty cool. Okay, I just kind of quickly wanted to do a thing all of the side of the eyeball. Let's see if we can just do that real quick. I'm going to take this and really squish it and really push it to the periphery here. And then let's see if we can warp it a little bit, just so it conforms. Okay, so now I just wanted to draw basically from the side the idea of the cornea that's there. So it's that lens. Actually, it's not really a lens, but it's just a covering. Looks like a contact lens though. And that's bumping out. There's a bulge there. And that could get any number of, reflections, right? So it could be, picking up different reflections here and there. What happened to that? Oh, I think what I had is my feathering. Yeah, so it's picking up different stuff. Right, here and there, just to get that sort of translucent look. Okay, there will be that highlight. Let's just paint that out and put a highlight on the actual surface right there. And again, you could have, a couple of them, right? Depending on what's out there, you could have a few different specular highlights, but one will suffice. And so that's the cornea there. So we've got cornea. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's draw 3 views of the eye. We'll start with basically the front view. And we got the eyelid coming across here. And tear duct or caruncula. Okay, and then lower lid. And that's that caruncula or tear duct. That's an interesting thing. So we want to talk about how the upper lid kind of dovetails right into that tear duct, and the tear duct butts up right against the sclera. Okay, let's put a little more of that iris in there. Pupil. Okay. So now we're seeing under part of the upper lid, the underplane, and then we just see front plane, and then we see a little bit, if we can squeeze out some of the underplane there, it'll give us some dimension, and then it tapers off. So we've got thickness, then it goes front plane, and then we see a little bit of that underplane. Okay, and then we've got a sense of the upper lid conforming to the eyeball. Okay, we have that connection here, and then it can kind of go around like that. All right, thickness of the lower lid, and then you'll see, sometimes you won't see a lower lid front plane, sometimes you will see it. Depends on the age of the person and ethnicity. And let's just put a sense of that orbital bone here, or eyebrow bone. Okay. So there's a front view. So the way that you can handle that tear duct is just really making that upper and lower lid connect to it, and one inside part of that lower lid takes off and moves to the left, and then there's another part of that top plane of lower lid pulls off. So you've got basically, this going under and coming out, in, over the eyeball, and then across that top plane, and then front plane. Okay, let's do it over here, right? Eyeball, top of the eyelid, then it goes to an underplane, and it hits the eyeball itself, and goes over that, and hits the top plane of the lower lid, and then hits the front plane. Okay, so you're squeezing dimension out of this thing. Okay. All right, so that's what you want. Okay, so let's look at another view here, to where it's kind of basically a 3/4 view. Okay. And we're going to put that eyebrow, or that eyelid pulling over. Okay. And then we've got a thickness to that lid. Okay, so we have an underplane there. And then, but it's actually not going to wrap quite all the way around because it's a 3/4. So I've got to pull the tear duct out, okay, and then bring it back, and then run it along the eyeball again, up underneath the top lid. Let's connect that top lid, and then create the thickness of the lower lid. A lot of times, really straight lines help. Like here I did a straight, there I did a straight. Here's curves, so it kind of straights against curves. And now this is going to pull right into the tear duct like that. And that's what's same thing on this part. Outer and inner parts of the upper lid that go into the tear duct. So it's like a little trough, where little tears can come down right there. So, and it looks like that if you think about it like that, or you can think about it like, just a basic shape like that, or maybe even, the other way around. Those things seem to work too, as long as they're connected to the eyeball. Okay, and then you can pull the eyelids out of that so you get thickness from them. Okay, all right, so let us do, I'm just going to darken this up here, and there would be a highlight here. See how easily it starts to come alive when you put a few well-placed things. And that's going to create top lid is going to create a shadow across the sclera and the cornea if it's coming from above. That does a lot right there. Okay. And then a little bit of shadow as the eyeball turns away from the light. Just look here. What might just add water. That's not really adding water. Why is that? Okay. And then we've got basically, shadow under here. Now that makes that top plane, differentiates that top plane from the front plane of the lower lid. Okay, and then one more thing. If I put that eyebrow bone in, I find that really helps orient the eye, and connects it to the face. It gives it a reference point, because if you just draw an eye or a nose or an ear just floating in space, it looks weird, right? If you just draw lips, they tend to look weird. If you connect them to something, give it a hint, it'll look a lot better. Right, so here you don't need lashes really, but you could put a sense of lash right there and then thicken it up. You can thicken it up here. Usually I'm not drawing eyes this close, so I don't need a bunch of different eyelashes. But that shadow from the upper lid onto the sclera will also continue onto that lower lid and then go down this way. So you've got, it's not working the way it should. Okay, there. Just softening these things up. For now, we could do, let's do a quick side view. I'm going to pull the upper lid over and around the surface of the eyeball, and then doing the same thing with the lower lid, pulling it over and around to the other side, and creating the shadow there of the upper lid onto the sclera, and just giving it some modeling tone to pull some 3D-ness out of it, putting the highlight, pupil. That pupil again is not in the center, but it's favoring the left side. And then we have the lens itself, the cornea. It's all coming together. Just real quickly, again, we have that sense of dimension where we're rolling over that eyebrow and then pulling out of a tight crease to the top plane of the upper lid, then going underneath to a bottom plane, and then going over the sclera or eyeball, and then boom, hitting that top plane of the lower lid, and then front plane of the lower lid, and then going into cheek. So we're really trying to show the plane changes and show that structure. And if we're conscious of that stuff, our drawings are going to, approximate and approach reality, better and better. So we're building the eye, on top of this ball, and that helps too. So I'm starting with the sense that the eye is a ball, and then pulling the lids over that. As long as I'm stretching and feeling I'm pulling and going to the other side, I'm pulling around and going to the other side, then I'm doing really good, and I'm covering the iris on the top and on the bottom. Okay, let's do some charcoal style eyes in Photoshop. When I was a kid, I always wore glasses since I was maybe 6 years old. And I remember I had a patch, and that was like, totally weird, really humiliating. And that was supposed to help my weak eye, because I had a weak eye. And so the fix for that was to wear a patch over the good eye to make the other eye, you know, do some more work. And so that's kind of what it did. I guess if you persisted with that, it might have worked, you know, because they have those pinhole glasses. You've seen pinhole glasses, right? They're like glasses with a bunch of million pinholes. And then you just wear that, and it makes things clearer because it, it closes down the aperture, like on a camera, right? If you close down that aperture, things are going to get, you're going to have a wider depth of field, and things are going to be crisper and clearer over a greater distance, right? So it's kind of like that if you put on those pinhole glasses. It's actually pretty amazing. Things do get clear without wearing your glasses. You're just wearing these lenses that have a bunch of pinholes in them. And that's pretty cool. It's like exercising your eye here if you do that long enough. So we're just drawing some eyes. Instead of, you know, we've been sort of analyzing these eyes, but now we gotta draw it. And put all that knowledge to use. Otherwise, it's just technical, you know, knowledge. And it's, you know, it's okay, but then you've got to make beautiful art out of what you know, right? Isn't that the point of it? Is to kind of draw what you know. Just trying to get a little shadow going over here. There we go. And then I have that that lower lid. It's in there. Need a little tighter line. These pencil tools in Photoshop, they're a little clunky. You know, they're not as good, let's say, as precise as a digital round brush in Photoshop. But the digital round is just so digital, right? It just looks like, you know, a technical machine sometimes. It's too clean. But it's really good for tight, small lines, whereas it's not so much with the pencil tool in Photoshop. It's, you know, you can't get too small with it. Once you start going small with it, it just goes away. It's like not there. So I'm using like this blender, a couple of different blenders, you know. So those are pretty cool. They really kind of make it, you know, go the next level. So it looks okay with the, you know, the brush looking like a pencil or charcoal. But when I use the blender, it really goes to the next level and actually makes it look like it's charcoal smudging beautifully onto that charcoal paper or Canson paper or whatever. Okay, so now I'm just going to tighten up a little. I've done my first pass of kind of the big shapes, spacing, placing the stuff. And now I'm going to go for it. Just with a nice tighter line. So we see that upper lid and we see the underside of the upper lid there. And then we've got the iris here. I'm not going to draw a round circle, I'm going to draw an oval because I'm looking up at it. So it's going to be ovoid and it's a distorted circle. And then I'm going to put my black highlights right there where I want you to look. You know, I don't want to put them over here on the outside or over here. I want to put it right, you know, there in that spot, because that's where the window of the soul is. And now I'm going to grab that, well, let me see, I'm going to bring that shadow over that lid, lower lid, and then into the tear duct. Continue this just over a little bit. Just cross-hatching into this shadow side of the brow bone. And then I'm going to hit my digital hard brush and pop in that highlight. And I may have to go to another layer for that because, you know, I'm using the mixer brush tool and it's mixing and it's doing some weird stuff. It's like you can't go over it the way you want. I'm going to put the dark part of the pupil right next to that highlight, that specular highlight. That'll make you look right there pretty much. And I'll go back to that lower layer and just kind of, let's just fade out that. I'll fade out that shadow just a little bit. Okay, let's go on to another eye. So usually, you know, I'll kind of draw something like an eyeball in there, right? Just really loose and light. And then I'll pull the top lid over and then I'll bring it, you know, this is kind of a 3/4 eye. So I'll just bring it into there. So I'm getting that nice underplane and I'm getting the angle of that upper lid. And sense of the eyebrow in there. Put the iris pupil. I usually put the pupil in last because it just looks too weird if I put it in. I have to kind of like sneak up on it and let it emerge. Otherwise it looks funky. I'm going to use some straight lines here on that outer edge of the lower lid because it's, you know, two parallel curved lines are hard to get, but if you have a curve against some straights, it actually works pretty well to get around a curved surface. At least that's what I kind of think design-wise, you know. Okay, so I'm going to hit that underside of the upper lid. I'm going to hit a little bit of that determinus where the upper lid kind of converges and tapers. And then we've got maybe a ridge here. Soften that up. And then what do we got? We got a lower lid. So we'll hit that. Right, so I'm usually I'll use a big brush or big charcoal and then I'll hit it and then go to the next smallest brush or charcoal just because I like to let the tool do the work for me. I'm going to get in here and put a shadow there on the eyeball so it looks like it's 3D and turning away from the light. I'm going to give it a soft edge there. Give this one a soft edge. And then let's put in the pupil. Let's see if our pencil tool can do that. It's okay. I want to put that iris into, and I'm going to need a tight line for that. And there's the shadow over the eyeball, over the iris. And let's get some of that iris defined here. So it can be like a kind of a striated thing, darker next to the lid that's casting the shadow, and then kind of a gradation, right, that comes out. And it's lighter on the lower part of the iris. And then I'm going to strengthen up that. Let's go to my digital hard round and just strengthen that up right there. Because that's where I'm going to want you to be looking. Kind of right in there. And then that goes right into the eyeball or the sclera. And then we'll pull that right into the tear duct. And we'll pull the outer part of that upper lid. There, so we get some thickness, right? So we got front part of the eyelid here, and then we've got under part, so it's front, and then it goes under, right? Pull a little bit off here, just squeeze out a little more dimension. We've got those tight crevices where the eyelid backs up against part of the bone, right, of the eyebrow. And I can give this just a little hint, because that's where the eyelashes would be, right? And a little more shadow into here, so I'm going to go back to my pencil and hit it right in there. Just thicken that up so it's kind of, yeah, that's where eyelashes would be and so on. That's kind of what I do instead of drawing a bunch of eyelashes. All right, now we can really go focus in on that pupil. Okay. And here I'm just going to hit, right, because that's going to be showing that it's, moving away from us just with a modeling tone, they call it. Let's just hit that again right there. And pop in a nice highlight. Those highlights, just put them in, especially if you're oil painting, just put it in and leave it. Just don't mess with it, because when you mess with it, it starts to mess. Put it in, leave it, you're good, trust it. Let's just put a sense of this, everything connected, right? One thing connected to another, and then it looks a lot better. Matter of fact, that's the job of the artist, is to really take what appear to be two isolated things or ideas or objects and bring them together in a way that no one's seen before, so you can open up a window of meaning to someone. And that's what's really so powerful about it, making art. It's like if you have a bunch of steps, but you don't have a dance, right? It's like having a bunch of notes, but you don't have a song. You want to connect everything together. Connect the steps so you have a dance. Connect the notes to a melody and a rhythm so that you have a song. Connect the eye to the nose and the brow, and it's going to look better. All right, so here I'm just going to set up the planes of the face for a profile and just sketch in the eye socket. I'm going to build it, temple bone, the eye socket, and then I can space and place the eyeball inside that socket. So the eyeball would be in there. Let's put it in. Actually, so it's in there, back set into the orbit of the eye, just like that little ball that was inside a cup, remember? So it's back in there. All right, so I'm going to build that eye socket. The more I can kind of think of like a sculpting jar, the better I am. So there's that eyeball sitting in there. And now I can construct it. So let's do that. So I'm going to that crease where the eyeball goes back behind the bone and we don't see it. Actually, that's bone right there. And then it kind of goes into the eyebrow. All right, and then I'm going to pull the eyelids over top. I'm not liking this pencil thing right now. So I'm going to switch to that digital hard round. I've got to make these things taper here. And then have an out, right? Okay, little sense of the eyelash. And then we're not going to see the wraparound too much because there's be eyelashes here. There's the sclera. Lower lid fitting into, coming out from the upper lid, and then kind of wrapping around there. So I'm just going to show the wraparound. And then a little bit of lid or eyelash pull off, but I'm just going to make it thickness, not individual eyelashes. Okay, then I'm going to, usually I just thicken up that upper lid because that says eyelash like nothing else. Because when I do eyelashes, it usually does not look good. Okay, so I'm just going to show that upper part of the upper lid as a curved line so it's conforming to the eyeball, the idea of the eyeball. Okay, and let's draw an eyebrow this time. And that I'll draw as a shape and a value. Something like that. So that starts underneath the eyebrow and then twist over the top onto the front of the face. Right? The eye is definitely not stuck on that contour line of the nose, right? We don't want that. We don't want it stuck right here and then put the eye there. Definitely not. We want to move it back and give it some space in here. Okay, so now there's that disc of the iris. I want to leave space there for that lower lid, that top plane of the lower lid. And let me see if I can go back to my pencil and just kind of hit it here. There we go. Perfect. And then let me give a cast shadow. See, but that's looking really kind of grainy and I don't like it. Sometimes it just, yeah, doesn't look that good. When the big stuff, it's good with those pencil tools, but when you're using kind of a small spaces, it doesn't look as good. All right, so let's get the pupil in there. Just hit it, leave it. And then let's get the eyebrows going over the top of that, or the eyelashes anyway. Kind of more of a thickness than anything else. And then I'm going to pull grab a pencil and just get that shadow going. Let's see which one's going to work. Sometimes they only work in certain directions too. Like this one works good in this direction, but this direction is a little bit different. It's kind of hard edged, whereas this one has a little more soft edge feel to it. This way it's too chiseled. So it's not quite like a real piece of charcoal, you know. All right, I'm going to shade that eyebrow on the bottom side, give it a little bit of depth, and then pull it over here. All right, then let's go for a soft, smudgy, where are we? Blender. Just playing with it. Okay, and then we need to get the lower lid shadow in there. Let's see if we can pull it back. And then I'm just going to thicken up that lower lid as if I actually did eyelashes for real on it. And it pulls up right into there. Kind of let that go into shadow there. Okay. And this, let's put part of that eyeball in shadow too, being cast from the upper lid. And then I'm going to go around the side of that orbital bone or eye socket that has a little depression in there and then comes out. Okay, I want it really tight. I'll tighten it up later. So let's put in the lights now. I'm just going to put it in just like I grab some white chalk. And man, this is where it gets fun. So I go from the general to the specific, just looking for the big angles, spacing and placing the elements, making sure things turn. Maybe that's a little bit too light there. Back off on that value. Okay. Kind of making this thing pop here. Working out that neutral paper, neutral value paper, middle gray, and then working out of the gray basically. That's something I learned from John Watkiss. He said paint out of the gray. I didn't know what he was talking about. But I think it's easier to kind of paint out of the gray and let something emerge instead of just working from white paper or even black paper, because you're in control of the value when it's gray. It's, you've already got sort of a lot of gray stuff down, and then you can make your way slowly with the darks and then the lights, and it's not such a formidable, kind of thing. Right, so that's not working good. Let's go back to a normal brush over here. Okay. So this is pretty dark, so I can go over it with a little bit of lighter value to make the eyelashes look like they're pulling and they're in front of that pupil. And I can really tighten up some of this stuff. Get into these nooks and crannies and refine my edges. So once I've got the stuff spaced and placed, I've got all the architecture, the big idea going, then I can go in, start refining and detailing, and making sure I have the right quality edges. So it's basically an edge pass, I like to call it. It's my edge pass. So it's just finding where you can soften the edges, right? Come back to water mixer brush, go to my tools and find, okay, what's that? Pull up another layer, a little bit lighter. Get that part of the cheek. It was a bit of a journey to kind of just make Photoshop look like real charcoal. I had a really hard time finding any brushes that worked like that. So I took the Photoshop brushes and tweaked them so that they kind of did what I wanted them to do. And it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was for sure. All right, now what can I do just to finish this off? I was thinking I could come in with a highlight. Maybe just hit that top plane of the lower lid, kind of catching light glinting off of it because it's facing the direction of the light. And maybe you can, might be able to get a little specular highlight in there too. And I can really tighten up shadows. So the more I do, obviously, the better it's going to look. Get in here and separate some of these eyelashes since we're so close up. Okay, so that line right there, this line right here, is where my plane change would be. So I just put that as a note to self that, I know that this is a plane change here. And that cheek, it's how that cheek fits in to the side plane of the head, Where's the shadow going to be? Where's the possible plane change that I could do, So sometimes I'll put that stuff in, and sometimes I'll leave it out. But it's always better if I put it in. It's always, I can back off on some of those lines later if I need to. But they definitely help when I'm blocking in, so I can just back off on this stuff. And once you get into the swing of it, you don't want to stop, right? It's kind of like, oh, this could be better, right? Put a little highlight there. Separate out this plane. It's catching light from the front plane to this top plane. I can lighten up the value. Put a little edge right there. And just to crispen that up. There's all kinds of stuff. You can just go and go and go. In here you might get a little bit of, glints of light. Right there, right? All right, so we did a couple of eyes here. We could probably do some more, but why don't we just call it? Thanks a lot for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel. And thanks so much for all your comments. It's been great to hear from you and respond to you. And I'll be putting out more content. And, give me a comment as to what you might like to see, or if you liked and it was helpful for you. Okay? Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.